Sarah Miller lived in a two-story light brick house on a quiet street in the Chicago suburbs. The fence was low, the lawn was manicured, and by the porch were pots of petunias that she changed seasonally. In the mornings, she drove Jake to school in a gray SUV and Emily to high school unless she was driving with a friend. On Fridays, they ordered pizza from a local pizzeria and watched a family movie. Everything looked like it should in a proper life. Inside, when the house emptied, Sarah felt a silence that brought no peace. She was 43. She woke before the alarm, went to the kitchen, put on the coffee maker, and automatically opened the refrigerator to check if there was enough milk. She did everything right, planned lists, made the children's doctor's appointments, answered client emails. Sarah worked remotely as a coordinator for a small nonprofit, helping collect donations and arrange events. The job was stable and rewarding, but without any development. John was getting a promotion at his construction company, traveling a lot to sites, getting tired and coming home later than before. "Mom, my practice is moving up to 5, Emily said one Monday, tying her hair into a ponytail by the sink. "Coach said we'll start earlier. Can you take me?" "I can," Sarah replied, not looking up from her phone. She was checking her calendar, where she had already added 3 reminders for that day. "Can I go to Matt's place?" Emily asked cautiously. "Just to discuss English." "First, practice, then we'll see," Sarah said, noticing her daughter's wince. "And don't forget to return the book to the library. Fines are money." Emily rolled her eyes, but said nothing. Jake, sleepy, appeared in the kitchen wearing a dinosaur t-shirt. "Can I have some cereal?" he asked. "You can. Just have the eggs first. We agreed that dessert comes after a proper meal." Jake sighed, but accepted the plate. John came in, straightening his tie, and quickly kissed Sarah on the cheek. "We have a meeting with a new developer today," he said, pouring himself a coffee. "I'll be back late. How are you?" "I have a call with the foundation at 11. Then I have to go to Jake's school. They asked me to help with the fair. And Emily has practice this evening. It's fine." "You're great," John said. "We couldn't have done it without you." He smiled and walked out, leaving behind the scent of cologne and a cold draft from the door. Sarah stood in the middle of the kitchen, looking at the schedule on the magnetic board and thinking that there was nothing on this day for her. After Jake's school, Sarah stopped at a store by the highway for milk, bread, and fruit. In the checkout line next to her stood a man in a formal coat, holding a plastic cup of coffee. He looked like he'd just stepped out of a meeting. Neat hair streaked with gray at the temples, an expensive watch. He was talking on the phone. "No, Susan, I can't reschedule the meeting for 4, he said evenly. "The client is waiting. Let's do it tomorrow." "Yes, of course." Sarah wouldn't have listened if he hadn't looked at her basket and smiled. "I always forget to buy apples," he said, nodding at her bag of Honeycrisp. "Then I grab some cookies and complain to the nutritionist." "Apples are a compromise," Sarah replied, unexpectedly smiling back. "I'm Robert," he introduced himself as he was leaving, holding the door for her. "I'm here often. We moved our office nearby." "Sarah," she said, "I live nearby." They broke up, and she didn't think much of it. People meet and part every day. But the next day, he was there again at the cafe at the co-working space where Sarah had come to work outside the home. She rarely allowed herself such outings, but at home, the sound of the washing machine ringing and the sight of crumbs under the table were distracting. "I think we crossed paths yesterday," Robert said, noticing her at the counter. "At the store, am I right?" "Yes," Sarah replied. "You were talking to someone named Susan." "Secretary," he chuckled. "I'm Robert Hughes. We're a commercial real estate firm. What about you?" "Coordinator at a non-profit organization. Sounds boring, but sometimes it's interesting." "You don't have to sound heroic to be helpful," he said, and it sounded like he meant it. They grabbed coffee and sat at a long table by the window. The conversation was light, about snow, roadwork, the local school. Sarah felt a rare ease in talking to an adult without the usual family-focused topics. Robert didn't ask about children, but when she mentioned she had two, he nodded. Mine are at college. The house is empty. I'm getting used to it. The comparison with her own silence stung her. She glanced at her watch. I have a call coming in 10 minutes, Sarah said. Good luck. If you want to work away from home, I'm often here. It's nice to have a new friend nearby, with an outlet and coffee. She smiled. That evening, while putting Jake to bed, she listened for a long time as he talked about the new Lego set. Emily texted in her room, leaving the door open. Sarah used to insist on keeping the door open, but now it had become an automatic habit. John returned at 10, tired but satisfied. The contract was signed, and the bonuses were coming. We should pick a weekend and go somewhere, he said in bed. To the lake or to Michigan. What do you think? That would be nice, Sarah said. But Emily has a competition in 2 weeks, and Jake has a school dance. Then in March. We'll see. They turned their backs. Sleep did not come quickly. A few days later, Sarah found herself back in the same co-working space. She told herself she needed a neutral background so she could calmly close her report for the foundation. Robert was already sitting at his desk, scrolling through his tablet. Are you saving yourself from doing laundry again? He asked, not pretending it was an accident. Yes, said Sarah, sitting down opposite, and from the noise of the leaves that need raking. I hate leaves, he said. They always come back. She noted how neatly he was groomed and how calm his speech was. He asked what exactly she did, and she told him how she negotiated a corporate sponsorship for school book sets. He listened attentively, asking clarifying questions without turning the conversation back to himself. At lunchtime, he suggested they get salads downstairs. Sarah initially declined, but he said, I'm crying because you saved me from the cookie. I took the apple. Sarah laughed. It had been a simple, almost innocent day. But that evening, as she was folding laundry on the couch, a message from an unknown number popped up on her phone. This is Robert. Found your website and was impressed with your projects. If you need help with an event hall, we have a space. He had obviously found her through the organization's website. Nothing personal, but her heart skipped a beat. She showed the phone to Kate Harris, her friend, when they met at a local coffee shop on Saturday. He's cute, Kate said, looking at the photo Sarah had quickly found on LinkedIn. And mature, and apparently he likes order. He's just an acquaintance, Sarah said. He suggested the site. Sarah, Kate said quietly, you know you're going through a period where you want change. That's normal. Just don't confuse change with a fire that will burn everything down. Are you okay? I'm tired, Sarah admitted. Sometimes I feel like I've disappeared. All these lists, meetings, chores, and I'm somewhere in between. Tell John, Kate replied. He's not a mind reader. Sarah nodded, but she knew talking to John would be awkward. He wasn't one for idle talk. He acted, he decided. He might ask, what exactly do you want to change? And she wouldn't know the answer. The following Tuesday, Sarah arrived at a meeting with potential sponsors at a conference center near the highway. She was nervous. The hall was large, the presentation simple, but she felt the project needed some support. As she was about to leave, Robert appeared at the entrance. He noticed her and approached. I'm here on business. Luck has found you, he said. How did the meeting go? It's fine, Sarah replied. They'll take a break to discuss it. If needed, I can introduce you to a friend of mine at the bank. They sometimes support local initiatives. I'd be grateful, Sarah said, and felt how the gratitude in her was mixed with something else dangerous and tugging. They walked out into the parking lot. It was cool. Robert opened the trunk of his car and took out a folder. Here's the contact, he said, handing over the business card. And, you said last time you liked good tea. There's a vendor on the ground floor who has decent sencha. 5 minutes. 5 minutes turned into 20. They sat on high chairs, drinking green tea. He asked not about her children, but about herself. What she liked. What she gave up when she became a mother. She talked about dancing. She used to go to an adult studio, but quit after Jake was born. He said, "Come back. Life doesn't forbid it." "It's more difficult than it looks," Sarah replied. "It's more complicated than it seems," he agreed, "but something has to be done." That evening, John was late again. Sarah was cooking pasta, and Emily was arguing with her about whether they could go to a friend's house for the night. Jake asked her to put on some TV for him. "John," Sarah began as her husband sat down at the table, "I was thinking I'd like to go back to dancing. I found an evening group downtown." "Good idea," he said, chewing. "What days?" "On Wednesdays, for an hour, after 7. Synchronize with Emily and Jake's schedule. I'm often in town on Wednesdays." It wasn't a refusal, but it wasn't a conversation either. After dinner, he went to check his mail. Sarah stood at the sink, washing dishes, thinking that her desire had been met with a solid wall of organizational details. Late that evening, another message arrived from Robert. "If you'd like, I can help with the haul for the charity event. Text me when it's convenient to discuss the details." She stared at the screen for a long moment, then wrote, "Thank you. Let's call on Friday at 10. On Friday, they talked for 40 minutes over Zoom. The first half covered the haul, equipment, and pricing, and the end focused on music, the evening's mood, and how to attract business people. Robert spoke confidently, like someone accustomed to finding solutions. And he asked her opinion. She liked that. After the call, Sarah felt a surge of energy she hadn't felt in a long time. She went out into the courtyard and crossed the street to deliver a bag of groceries to Mrs. Wilson. She had asked for help over the phone. Mrs. Wilson opened the door carefully, holding the handle. "Oh, Sarah, you're an angel," she said. "I forgot to buy soup again. Age is a strange thing. You've lost weight again. Is everything okay?" "It's fine," Sarah replied. "I'm just busy." "I see John less and less," the old woman said. "He's a good man. Take care of him. Men sometimes don't realize what's happening until it's too late." Sarah smiled, but the phrase hit home. She returned home, made a couple of calls, and found herself anticipating her next contact with Robert. A week later, he invited her to a meeting at his office to view the space together. She told John she was going to view the space for a charity event. It was true, but the truth didn't obscure the other nuances. Robert's office was in a glass building next to a shopping mall. The lobby smelled of cleaning products. The secretary led her into a conference room. Robert entered, smiled, and shook her hand. "I'll show you the room first," he said. "Then we'll discuss the contract." The hall was comfortable, a stage, a projector, and the right sound. Sarah walked up and down the rows, mentally arranging tables and introducing the guests. Robert stood nearby, occasionally explaining what could be changed. "You see everything well," he said. "Not everyone has such an easy way of orienting themselves in space." "It's my way of keeping things under control," Sarah replied. When they returned to the conference room, he poured them water. The conversation flowed naturally again. He suddenly asked, "Are you happy?" She didn't expect it. She didn't answer quickly. She could have said, "Yes, I have a family, a home, a job." She could have said, "It varies." She told a truth she rarely spoke. "I don't know." He nodded, not rushing her. "I pretended to know for a long time," Robert said. "Then the kids left, and I realized I was just following a plan. A plan is good, but sometimes a plan has no soul." Sarah felt a tension in her throat. She looked away at the folder with the contract. "We still need to discuss the budget," she said. "Yes, of course," he replied, becoming businesslike again. He didn't try to press her on the personal. This calmed her down and simultaneously drew her closer. That evening, already at home, she opened her laptop to send him a revised estimate. Her fingers paused on the keyboard. She wrote, "Thank you for your time. The hall is perfect. And also, that question you asked has been on my mind." She immediately deleted the second sentence. She sent only the business part. A minute later, a reply came, "Happy to help." If you'd like to discuss more than just the hall, I'm here. She sat for a long time in the dark kitchen, listening to the refrigerator hum quietly. In the bedroom, John was already asleep. In Emily's room, the TV screen glowed softly. Jake sprawled across the bed, the blanket tucked under his feet. Everything was familiar, and in this familiarity, she felt an emptiness that could not be filled with the chores of everyday life. They went to the mall over the weekend to buy Emily's sneakers. Sarah and Emily argued over the price, and John offered a compromise. Jake tugged at her sleeve into the game store. The food court smelled of fried food. Sarah stared at her hands on the table, listening to John talk about a new project in Naperville. She caught herself nodding at the right moments, but her thoughts wandered elsewhere, to the conversation in the boardroom, to the tea in the conference center, to the feeling of being seen. In the evening, already putting Jake to bed, she heard from him. "Mom, are you happy?" "Why are you asking?" she asked cautiously. "I don't know. You're so quiet sometimes." "I'm just tired," Sarah said, kissing his forehead. "It's okay. Sleep." When the house was quiet, she picked up her phone. A notification lit up the screen. "Robert, if it's convenient for you, we can meet at that new bar on the corner after 6 this week. No formalities." He'd written you, not yours. She noticed it and realized it wasn't a business invitation. She erased the notification and set the phone on the table. Then she picked it up again, stared at it for a long moment, and typed, "Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. on the corner by the bookstore. Just a quick visit." The answer came immediately. "We agreed." Sarah turned off the screen and sat in the darkness. She didn't need a mirror to know that her expression was that of someone taking the first step into the unknown. She wasn't thinking in terms of betrayal or deception. She was thinking about drinking a glass of wine and talking to someone who would hear her answers to questions she hadn't asked herself. The next morning, she got up as usual. Coffee maker, lunchboxes, school, work. John left early, saying, "Don't wait up tonight." Emily slammed the door and walked to the school bus without saying goodbye. Jake hugged her tightly, as he did every day. She shook off her thoughts, sat down at her laptop, and tried to immerse herself in spreadsheets. It wasn't working. At 2 o'clock, she received a text from Kate. "Are you okay?" Sarah texted. "Yes," her friend called. "I feel like you're on edge," Kate said. "What's going on?" Sarah was silent for a long time, then said, "I'm meeting someone on Wednesday. Just to talk. I need it." "Sarah," Kate said, "if this is just a conversation, why are you speaking in that voice?" "Because I know what this can lead to." "Don't pretend you don't know," Kate said. "You're an adult. You can stop, or you can move on and deal with the consequences later. I'll still be your friend, but I won't say it's innocent. It's not innocent." "I understand," Sarah said. After the call, she felt cold, even though the heating was on. She hugged herself. She knew she was making a choice. She knew the children were waiting at home, that John trusted her by default, and yet she still didn't cancel the meeting. On Wednesday, she wore a simple black dress under her coat and left a note for Emily on the kitchen table. "Dinner lasagna in the oven. Heat at 350 for 20 minutes. Be there later." For Jake, she left a drawing of a dinosaur and a smiley face. She checked her watch, 6:05 p.m. She had 10 minutes to go. Robert was standing at the intersection near the bookstore. He noticed her, didn't approach right away, and let her come to him on her own. The bar was quiet. They sat by the window. He asked, "Wine or something non-alcoholic?" "Wine," Sarah said. "One." They talked about the city news, about the music on an old recording, about how they don't play loud music at this bar. Then the conversation changed direction. "I didn't mean to make a game of it," Robert said, "but I feel good with you. I won't push it. If this isn't the right time, tell me." Sarah looked at his face and thought how simple such words sounded from a man who was used to calling everything by its proper name. She placed the glass on the table. "This is the wrong moment," she said, "and at the same time, it's the only time I feel anything. I don't know what it is." "I know it's a risk," he said, Everyone has their own. They left the bar separately. It was chilly outside. She stood by the bookstore window, pretending to examine the covers. He paused a few steps. They didn't touch, but that evening something shifted, and a crack that had long been invisible became visible. Sarah walked home, her mind lining up excuses, explanations, and half-closed phrases like a to-do list. She knew she'd crossed a line without even touching his hand, and there was no turning back now without everything remaining the same. The house smelled of reheated lasagna. Emily sat at the table writing an essay. Jake, in his pajamas, was building a tower. Sarah took off her coat, kissed her son, asked her daughter about the essay topic, and put the dishes in the sink. A short text from Robert arrived on her phone. "Thank you for the evening." She didn't answer, but she placed the phone next to her on the table as she would place an everyday object. That night, she lay awake for a long time, listening to Emily tossing and turning in the next room, Jake snoring. She thought about John, who'd texted at 10, "I'm going to be late, don't wait up." She thought about herself, the one who'd once dreamed differently, and she knew she'd already taken her step. On Sunday evening, Sarah signed up for evening modern dance classes at a studio in Evanston. She chose Wednesday and Friday to avoid clashing with Emily's competitions. It looked right on the calendar. She texted John, "Signed up for dance. I'll be busy after 7 on Wednesday and Friday." He replied briefly, "Okay, proud of you." On Monday morning, the kitchen smelled of toast. Emily was packing her backpack and Jake was trying to zip up his jacket. "I'm staying for extra math tonight," Emily said. "The teacher said it'll help with the test." "Okay," Sarah nodded. "I'll pick you up at 6. "You promised to look at my essay," Emily reminded. "Send it to me on Google Docs," Sarah replied. "I'll take a look during the day." John, drinking coffee at the counter, glanced at the schedule on the magnetic board. "I have a meeting downtown on Tuesday. I'll be back late," he said. "I can drive Jake there in the morning if you want." "Thank you," Sarah said. "That will be convenient." The workday dragged on. Sarah had a call with the foundation, a letter from the school committee, and a shopping list for the fair. At lunchtime, she caught herself looking for her phone. There was no message from Robert. She wrote back, "Wednesday dance. Friday free until 9. Can we discuss volunteers?" A minute later, a reply came, "Friday at 6. The cafe on the corner of Main and Dodge. And yes, we'll discuss volunteers." On Tuesday after school, Jake had soccer practice at the gym. Sarah sat on a wooden bench, holding a paper cup of hot chocolate. On the next bench, Mrs. Wilson was chatting with another neighbor about trash cans and parking. Sarah listened with half an ear, her eyes watching Jake fumble with the ball. "Sarah," Mrs. Wilson said to her, "your parents are going to have a picnic near the school on Saturday. Will you come?" "I'll try," Sarah replied. "Emily has practice, but we can make it." "We haven't seen John for a long time," Mrs. Wilson said. "I hope you're all well." "He has a lot of work," Sarah said briefly, turning her gaze to her son. That evening, Emily showed her an essay about the Great Gatsby. The text was full of straightforward sentences, with almost no embellishment. Sarah noted how accustomed her daughter was to clear language and how she avoided embellishment. "You write honestly," Sarah said. "That's good. Add examples from the text so the teacher doesn't get stuck." "Mom," Emily said after a pause, "are you okay? It's not like you've just been staring at something for a while." "I'm just tired," Sarah replied, "and I'm trying to get back to my things. Dancing will help." On Wednesday, she went to dance class, as she'd promised. The studio smelled of cleaning fluid and rubber flooring. Middle-aged men and women were stretching their muscles, some laughing at their own stretches. The instructor turned on some music and demonstrated a simple routine. Sarah moved, following the rhythm, feeling like she was doing something for herself. Her body responded slowly, but the memory of the movement returned. After class, she quickly changed and checked her phone. A message from Robert. "How was the dance?" she replied. "Fine. Feeling rusty, but happy." He wrote, earned a glass of wine. She read it and put the phone in her pocket. Her coat was still warm. She stood in the hallway, hearing someone talking about children, dieting, and the dog. Then she finally answered, "Home today? Friday, yes." She'd prepared Friday ahead of time. She'd left Emily a to-do list. Warm up dinner. Make sure Jake washes his hands. Turn off the living room lights before 10. She texted John, "Meet me after 9, he replied. "I'll be at my parents'. Dad needs help with the garage. I'll be back late." Sarah felt a strange sense of relief at not having to explain. The cafe on Main was bright. People were sitting at tables with laptops, and some were laughing at the counter. Robert was sitting by the window and stood up when she entered. They hugged for a second, as if it were customary among acquaintances. She caught his scent clean, slightly tart. "I'm glad to see you," he said, immediately switching to the informal you. "Me too," Sarah said. They ordered coffee. The conversation began with volunteers, lists, props, and the budget. Sarah pulled out her tablet and opened a spreadsheet. Robert offered to bring his staff in for one evening to help with seating. "It's not a favor," he explained. "It's beneficial for them to participate. And for HR, it's standard practice." "That will be a great help," Sarah said. "Thank you." They spoke in a businesslike tone, but there were short pauses between sentences. These pauses contained everything that wasn't said. Robert was the first to cross the line. "I don't want to pretend that business alone brought us here," he said quietly, "but I respect your situation." Sarah looked at him straight. "I have a family," she said. "2 children. A husband. This isn't an ad, it's a fact." "I hear you," he said, "and I don't intend to destroy anything on purpose, but I won't lie that I don't care about you." She sighed. She was having trouble finding the words. At that moment, Kate called. Sarah hung up and texted, "I'll call you back later." They left the cafe at 7:40. It was cool on the corner. Robert suggested they walk around the block. "5 minutes," Sarah said. "I have to go home." They walked past the storefronts. Robert talked about his son, who transferred from one college to another, and his daughter, who decided to change her major. There was no complaint in his voice, only a statement. "You know," Sarah said, "I've been doing things for other people for the last few years. That's not a complaint, it's just a fact. And suddenly I saw I could do something for myself. And that scared me." "You have the right," he replied. "It's not a crime." They stopped at a traffic light. Robert touched her hand for a second, testing her reaction. Sarah didn't pull away. She knew this was no longer just a business relationship. At that moment, her alarm went off, but she didn't turn away. At home, Emily was sitting on the couch, a plate of half-eaten salad next to her. Jake was already asleep. Emily looked up. "Where have you been?" she asked. Her voice held no curiosity, but a sense of inquiry. "I met a colleague about a charity event," Sarah replied. It was true, but not the whole story. "How did the evening go?" "It's fine," Emily said. "You smell like a different perfume." "I was at the cafe. It smells of everything," Sarah said too quickly, and immediately heard a new tone in her reply. Emily didn't answer. She turned off the TV and went into the room, loudly closing the door. Saturday started with a rush. Sarah took Jake to a classmate's birthday party at the trampoline center, bought a gift, and drank coffee on a plastic chair there. Nearby, her parents were discussing mortgage rates. Her phone vibrated. "Robert, thanks for tonight. I was thinking about you." She typed, "Don't text now." Then she deleted it and wrote, "Let's keep our distance." A reply came, "Respect. If you want, you know where to find me." 10 minutes later, another. "Work at the gym is progressing. I'll send an updated contract on Monday." On Sunday, they went to John's parents' house for lunch. The house in Oak Park, the old oak trees, the smell of roasting chicken, the accounting calendar on the kitchen wall. John's mother hugged Sarah tightly. "You've lost weight," she said. "I hope it's not because of nerves." "Just dancing," Sarah answered. and I run sometimes. At the table, John's father told jokes about his friends from the golf club. Emily had distanced herself, sat on her phone, but answered questions politely. Jake ran between the dining room and the living room. John was in a good mood. He talked about the new project and the engineer who was always late. "We're thinking of trying a trip to Michigan in the spring," he said. "For a couple of days. We'll rent a house by the lake." "That's a good idea," his mother agreed. "Sarah, a change of scenery would be good for you." Sarah smiled. She felt like all the plans were wrapped up in "we." She wanted to ask herself where in that "we" there was a separate "I," but she remained silent. On Monday morning, John found someone else's business card on a chair, Hughes Realty. He raised an eyebrow. "What is this?" he asked. Sarah, having washed the frying pan, turned around. "Contact for the venue for the charity event. Robert Hughes is assisting with the venue." "I see," said John, placing the business card on the refrigerator with a magnet. "Reliable?" "Quite," Sarah answered. John didn't ask any questions. But that evening, when they were already in the bedroom, he asked, "Are you happy with how everything is going? I'm talking about us, about the house." Sarah froze. She knew this question had been hanging in the air for months. "I'm tired," she said. "I lack focus, and sometimes I feel like a dispatcher. Everything is on schedule, everything is correct, but it's like I don't live separately from this schedule." John was silent for a long time. "I work hard," he said. "I thought it was for us. Maybe I got the balance wrong." "It's not all your fault," Sarah replied. "And I'm no hero either. I'm just telling it like it is." "What do you want?" he asked. She looked at the ceiling. "I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out." On Tuesday, Sarah met with Robert again, this time in his office conference room, to sign the contract. They sat on opposite sides of the table. The secretary brought water and left a file. "We can get a discount for a nonprofit," Robert said. "It's fair." "Thank you," Sarah nodded. There was a pause when the papers were signed. Robert put his pen back in its leather case and looked up. "I'm trying to keep my distance, like you asked," he said. "But it's difficult." "It's hard for me too," Sarah admitted. "I don't want everything to fall apart. I have children, and I don't want to hurt them." "I'm not asking you to promise anything," he replied. "I'm just here." She stood up. "I have to go. I need to pick up Jake." "I'll walk you to the elevator," he said. They stood next to each other in the elevator. Their shoulders were almost touching. She felt the tension, like electricity before a thunderstorm, but without the loud words or gestures. The doors opened, and they stepped out. Near the turnstile, he said quietly, "Take care of yourself." "You too," Sarah replied. She sat in the car in the parking lot for a few minutes, staring at the steering wheel. Then she started the engine and drove to school. The hallway smelled of floor wax and paper. Jake, seeing her, ran and grabbed her hand. "Mom," he said, "I have chess on Thursdays now. Can I?" "Of course," Sarah said. "We'll figure out how to fit it in." A note from Emily was waiting for her at home. "Gone to Meg's for an hour. Back for dinner." On the kitchen table lay the same Hughes Realty business card, held in place by an apple-shaped magnet. Sarah picked it up and placed it in the drawer. She closed the drawer quickly, as if that would make any difference. On Wednesday at dance class, Sarah was practicing a turn that kept slipping. The instructor came over and adjusted her feet. "Don't rush," he said. "First balance, then step." After class, she received a text from John. "Met Mr. Hughes in town today. He seemed polite. Are you okay?" Sarah felt a twinge inside. She wrote, "Yes, everything is going according to plan." That evening, Emily approached her in the living room. "Mom," she said, "you know I'm not that easy to fool. I can see something's changing. Don't pretend it's just dancing." Sarah sat down on the sofa. "I'm trying to organize a charity event," she said, "and get back to my place. Sometimes it feels weird. It's not against you." "I'm not a little girl," Emily replied. I don't want you to say later that no one warned you." Sarah found nothing to say. Emily left, leaving her with silence and the ticking of the clock. Thursday was a busy day, a shopping list for the fair, a conversation with Jake's teacher, and a budget review. That evening, Kate called. "You're gone," she said. "I'm worried." "I'm fine," Sarah said. "I'm just busy." "Sarah," Kate said, "have you crossed the line yet?" Sarah was silent for a long time. "I don't know what to call it," she finally said, "but I know it won't be easy to go back." "I'm with you," Kate said, "but remember the children. They see everything before we admit it to ourselves." On Friday morning, Sarah dropped Jake off at school and went to the supermarket. She met Mrs. Wilson in the dairy section. "You've lost even more weight," said the neighbor. "Are you okay?" "I just move a lot," Sarah said. "Move in the right direction," she replied. "I say this with kindness." Sarah nodded and walked past. Her thoughts were spinning. She realized that her steps were no longer hers alone. Every step was reflected in the household, as if in glass. But she continued anyway. That evening, John returned early with a bouquet of simple daisies from the supermarket. "Let's go to dinner on Sunday with just the two of us," he said. "I can ask Mom to babysit." Sarah was at a loss. "Go ahead," she said. "It will be right." They stood in the kitchen, vegetables lying nearby, the dishwasher humming. John put his arm around her shoulders. It was a familiar embrace. Sarah closed her eyes. She wanted the familiar to become alive again. But inside, there was another life, one she had let in. And yet, on Sunday, they went together to a restaurant by the river. They ordered steak and pasta. They drank wine. They talked about business and the children. John tried to get personal. "It's important for me to know what you want. Not about a vacation, about us. I need to feel like I haven't disappeared," she said. "I need you to see me." "I see," he said. "Maybe not the way you want. I'm learning." They returned home late. Emily was reading in the living room. Jake was asleep. The lights from the street reflected in the darkened hallway. Sarah put her bag on the table and caught a glimpse of her phone screen. "Robert, have a nice evening." She switched the phone to silent mode and placed it face down. Her secret steps had already formed a path. She walked along it further and further, realizing that the moment would inevitably come when she could no longer pretend that this was just work and dancing. At the beginning of the week, an email from Robert with final revisions to the contract was in Sarah's inbox. The subject line was neutral. The inside contained businesslike points and a short note. "After the event, we just need to grab coffee for no particular reason." She closed the email without replying. She had a busy day on her calendar: a dentist appointment for Jake, a parent-teacher conference for Emily, shopping for the fair, and an evening call with a foundation. Sarah drove to Costco, then stopped at the hardware store for fairy lights and extension cords. John called her in the parking lot. "I'll be back early today," he said. "We've finished accepting the site in Skokie. I want to make it for dinner." "Great," Sarah replied. "I'll buy some grilled chicken." Emily promised to help with the salad. "Okay, I'll pick Jake up after school. Will you make it to the meeting?" "Yes." Sarah put down her phone and immediately received a message from Kate. "How are you? Don't be so busy." She replied, "Getting some groceries. I'll call you this evening." Then came a short message from Robert. "Good luck today. Don't burn out." She automatically typed, "Thanks," and immediately deleted it, leaving it unanswered. By evening, everything had come together. John had brought Jake, Emily had sliced cucumbers, and Sarah had baked potatoes. The four of them had dinner. John was in a good mood, joking with Jake and asking Emily about the test. There was a rare, calm harmony at the table. After dinner, John said, "I'll go to the living room and call my dad." He asked about garage shelving. Sarah was clearing her desk when she remembered the school committee had asked her to print out the roster. The printer was in John's office, but they mostly printed from the family iPad, which sat on the console in the hallway. The kids used it for school apps. Sarah nodded to Emily. I uploaded it to the general drive list. Print out 2 pages, please. Okay, Emily said and went to the console. A minute later, Emily returned with an iPad and sheets of paper. Done. I also got some other pop-up notifications, so I closed it. It had the name Robert. Is it work-related? Sarah froze for a second. Yes, around the hall, she said evenly. Thank you. Emily stared but said nothing. Sarah picked up the sheets and placed them in a folder. Meanwhile, John, talking on speakerphone with his father, walked past and picked up an iPad from the table. Dad, just a sec, I'll get my tablet. I have my contacts on there, he said into the phone. He swiped his finger habitually and unlocked it with Face ID. A banner hung at the top of the screen. Message, Robert Hughes. John, still holding the phone to his ear, automatically clicked it. A chat opened on the screen. The last lines were visible. Friday, 6. Then let's just walk together. A message from a month ago. Below that, thanks for the evening. Even lower from Sarah. Let's keep our distance. And a very fresh line from this morning. Don't burn out. John fell silent on the line. Hello, came his father's voice. John. Dad, I'll call you back, John said, hung up and stood looking at the screen. Sarah moved closer, trying to figure out what exactly he saw. Her heart was pounding loudly, but she tried to look calm. It's around the hall, she repeated, but her voice was already trembling. John didn't take his eyes off the messages. He scrolled up. There were short sentences without any direct confessions, but the tone was clear. You deserve a glass of wine. I feel good with you. It's a risk. And her, it's difficult for me too. John looked at Sarah. His face hardened. What's this? He asked quietly. Work? Emily stood in the kitchen doorway, clutching a textbook to her chest. Jake was channel surfing in the living room, confused about what was going on. John, let's talk somewhere else, Sarah said, feeling her control of the situation slipping. Excellent, he said. In the bedroom. They walked in and closed the door. John put the iPad on the dresser. Are you cheating on me? He asked bluntly. Sarah closed her eyes for a second. Yes, it was. How much? He asked. A week? A month? 6 months? A few weeks, she replied. It didn't start with something physical. We were communicating. Then it became more. John rested his hands on the edge of the dresser, as if choosing his words. Who is he? Just don't say colleague, he said. I see the name. Robert Hughes, Sarah said. He's helping with the set. He runs his own company. How many people are involved? He asked. Does Kate know? She knows, Sarah admitted. She tried to stop me. John laughed briefly and without joy. Good. So you know what you're doing. I know it hurts, Sarah said. I'm not making excuses. I was empty. I was searching for myself. You decided to seek yourself in bed with another, he said, raising his voice. An excellent way. Don't shout, Sarah asked. The children are at home. Children, he repeated. Is that what you remembered now? A cautious knock came from the hallway. Emily's voice. Can you stop shouting? Jake can hear you. It's okay, Sarah said through the door. We're talking. It's not normal, John said, but more quietly. He picked up the iPad again, scrolled down, and turned it off. How many times? Twice, said Sarah. The rest is meetings, correspondence. How conveniently you divide everything, he said. Twice is enough. He walked around the room. When? He asked. When I was with my parents, when I was working in Skokie. Once after a meeting at his office, Sarah said. The second time was at the airport hotel when I said I'd be staying in Evanston. John nodded as if checking an internal fact sheet. Why? He asked. Saying I'm tired isn't an answer. Why? Sarah felt her throat tighten. I lost myself, she said. I told you I needed attention. I did everything right for years, and then I realized no one saw me as a person. He asked about what was important to me. I'm not making excuses. I'm explaining. He asked, John repeated. Then that was enough to make you cross the line. It's my fault, Sarah said. I made a choice. John walked to the window, pulled back the curtain, and looked out onto the dark street. When he turned around, his eyes were wet. I'm not perfect, he said. I worked hard, sometimes I was blind, but I didn't betray you, and I always thought we were a team. I was wrong. I don't want to ruin everything, Sarah said, but I already have. I understand. The door opened again. Emily let her head in. Dad, she said quietly, Jake's crying. Can I take him to Meg's for the evening? It'll be quieter at our house. No, said John. We can handle it ourselves. Close the door. Emily closed the door, but no footsteps were heard. She clearly remained against the wall. What now? John asked. Are you going to continue? No, Sarah said. I've already written to him to keep my distance. Was that before the hotel? John asked. Sarah lowered her head. After the first time, she said, then I lost it. John clenched his fists, but held his ground. Go to him, he said suddenly. If he's so important, go to him. I don't want to go to him, Sarah said. I want to understand what's wrong with us, and what's wrong with me. With us? John repeated. With us now, there's only one thing. You cheated on me, and we have 2 children, and this isn't a scenario for soft words. He took the suitcase from the closet, threw it on the bed, and opened it. He took out things quickly, jeans, shirts, a couple of t-shirts. Sarah stood motionless. Where are you going? She asked. To my brother, he said. For a couple of days, I can't breathe in this house. Sarah came closer. Let's not make any decisions today, she said. Please. You've already made your decision, he replied. I'll pick up Jake for school tomorrow. Emily can get there on her own. I'll pick up my tools from the garage on Saturday. You shouldn't be home when I get there. Okay, she said, because she understood that any attempt to argue now would only ignite the situation even more. He zipped up, picked up his suitcase, and walked into the hallway. Emily was standing against the wall, red-eyed. Dad, she said, stay. We'll decide. I'll call you in the morning, he said. You need to go to bed. Jake peeked out of the room in his superhero pajamas. Dad, are you leaving? He asked in a trembling voice. John dropped to one knee and hugged his son. For a couple of nights, he said. You're okay. I'll pick you up for school myself tomorrow. Because of me? Jake asked. No, said John. It's not your fault. He stood up and looked at Sarah. I'll call a lawyer, he said quietly. I don't know if we have a chance, but I won't live a lie. The door slammed. The hallway was empty. Sarah stood, her hand on the frame. Emily walked past her without looking, closing herself in the room. The smell of spices from the unfinished dinner wafted from the kitchen. 10 minutes later, the phone rang. Kate. I called you, she said. What happened? Sarah went out onto the porch so the children wouldn't hear. He saw the correspondence, she said. On the iPad. That's all. He left, Kate asked. Yes, to my brother. He told me about the lawyer. I'm nearby, Kate said. Want me to come? No need. Emily is here. Jake is crying. I need to be in the house. Sarah, Kate said, don't write to Robert. Not tonight. Don't decide anything. I didn't mean to, Sarah replied. She returned to the house, went into Jake's room, and sat on the edge of the bed. Mom, he whispered, are you going to fight? No, she said. We don't fight. We talk loudly, but that's between adults. Will Dad come back? He asked. He's always your dad, she said. He loves you. We'll figure this out. Jake hugged her tightly. Sarah sat next to him until he dozed off. Then she went to Emily's door. She knocked. If you come in, I'll say something stupid, Emily responded from behind the door. I'm angry. You can be mean, Sarah said. I deserve it. The door opened. Emily was standing there in a t-shirt, her eyes puffy. "You knew it would happen," she said. "Why?" Sarah sat down on a chair by the door. "I knew it," she said, "and I went anyway. I did something wrong. I'm not asking you to justify me. You don't have to talk to me if it makes you feel better." "I'll talk because you're my mother," Emily said, "but I don't know how to respect you." "It's honest," Sarah said, "and it hurts to hear, but it's honest." They sat in silence. Then Emily said, "Jake asked if it was his fault. I told him it wasn't. Don't make him grow up faster." "I'll try," Sarah nodded. The night passed in fragments. Sarah lay in her bed, half empty. She didn't turn on the light. Her phone blinked once, a calendar notification for tomorrow. She glanced at the screen, saw the name Robert in her recent contacts, and switched her phone to airplane mode. She had no intention of texting him. Morning arrived with the usual logistics: breakfast, clothes, backpacks. John arrived promptly at 7:45, not going further than the hallway. He picked up Jake, nodded briefly to Sarah, and said to Emily, "I'll be back this evening." He looked collected, but his voice was tense. Sarah stood, holding onto the edge of the table until the door closed. At 9, the Foundation's event representative called. Sarah put on her work voice and discussed the matter so as not to miss the deadline. At 10, the school principal called to clarify the details of the fair. At 11, Mrs. Wilson texted, "I heard John arrived very early. Is everything all right with you?" Sarah replied briefly, "Family matters. Thank you for your concern." At noon, Kate called and said curtly, "I wrote down the contact information for the family counselor for you. If you decide to call, please do so not for John, but for yourself." At 2 o'clock, a letter arrived from the lawyer whom Sarah understood John had found through a friend. A notice of a preliminary consultation and a list of documents. She sat over the letter, looking at the items: marriage certificate, child rights and responsibilities, joint property. The list was like a cold checklist. At 3, a short text from John arrived: "Picking the kids up for dinner. Back by 8. Sarah replied, "Okay." No smiley faces, no further clarification. She walked through the house, gathering a bag of Jake's things, just in case. On the table lay the Hughes Realty business card she'd put away in a drawer the day before. One of the children, probably Emily, had moved it into plain sight. Sarah took the card and tossed it in the trash. When John picked up the kids at 6, he didn't look up. Emily got out quickly, and Jake ran happily to the car. Sarah stood in the doorway. "Call me if you need anything," she said. "I can handle it," John answered. The door closed. The house grew quiet. Sarah sank into a kitchen chair, resting her head on her palms. She understood. There was no going back to the way things had been. They could discuss terms, seek help, try to establish communication for the sake of the children. But the fact of betrayal already stood between them like a wall, and this day will be remembered by everyone. Late in the evening, when the children returned sleepy, John put the bag with the leftovers on the table. "They ate," he said. "We'll talk about the schedule tomorrow." "Okay," Sarah replied. "And one more thing," John added. "Don't drag the children into talking about the reasons. It's a request." "I agree," Sarah said. They looked at each other for a few seconds. Then he left. The corridor became empty again. Sarah locked the door, checked the windows, and went into the children's rooms. She tucked Jake in and turned off Emily's lamp. She returned to the kitchen, poured water, and drank it down in one gulp. Her phone was on the table. She turned it on and typed a short message to Kate. "Family on hold. I'm holding up." Then, in a separate window, she typed "Robert," opened the chat, paused on a blank line, and slowly closed it without typing. She had no right to seek support there. She stepped out onto the porch and breathed in the chill evening air. It was a typical suburban evening. Neighbors were taking out bags, and a dog barked somewhere. Inside, there was a dull hum. They would have silent children at breakfast and John's empty chair. And ahead lay conversations with lawyers, with a school psychologist, and if necessary, with the foundation, to ensure the event didn't fall through. And all this no fiction, no easy solutions. The revelation happened without a dramatic scene. A few lines on the screen. That was enough to set things on a different course. On Monday morning, Sarah received an email from John's lawyer. Notice of filing of petition for dissolution of marriage. The email contained a PDF with formal language and a date for a preliminary hearing in district court. She opened the document and read the dry clauses. Property division, no alimony requested, child issues referred to mediation. Beneath the document was a signature, Jonathan Miller, assisted by counsel. Sarah closed her laptop and stared out the window. On the neighboring lawn, workers were raking leaves into bags. She took out the trash, returned, and opened the email again. No drama, just the facts. Kate called 10 minutes later. "Have you seen the letter?" she asked. "Yes," Sarah said. "The trial is at the end of the month. Mediation is earlier." "I can come with you," Kate said. "Sit in the hallway and hold a thermos of coffee." "Thank you. I'll go to the mediation myself," Sarah replied. "I need to learn to speak without interpreters." That evening, John stopped by to pick up some papers from his office and some clothes. He arrived with boxes, not looking around. Emily locked herself in her room, and Jake peeked timidly around the corner. "Hey, champion," John said, crouching down in front of his son. "We're having pizza and a movie on Friday. Ready?" "Yes," said Jake. "Are you coming back to live at home?" "Not yet," John replied, "but we'll see each other a lot." He stood up and glanced at Sarah. "Have you signed the contract with the hall?" he asked. "Yes," Sarah said. "The event is next month." "I hope everything goes without a scandal," he said and turned away, picking up the box. Sarah stood in the kitchen, holding on to the edge of the table. She wanted to say that she'd cut ties with Robert, that she'd thrown away his business card, that she'd been silent for 2 weeks. But there was no point in saying that now. She picked up a notepad and wrote a list: mediation, school guidance for Emily, Jake's schedule, house bill. The items lined up like handrails. The mediation took place in an office on Lake Street. Low chairs, anonymous paintings, a teapot against the wall. The mediator, a woman in her 50s with a carefully compressed smile, suggested discussing the children first. "Was there a way to inform them of the changes?" she asked. "They already understand everything," John said. "We didn't hide it. We didn't behave with dignity, but we didn't hide it." Sarah nodded. "Emily's angry, Jake's scared," she said. "We need a sustainable plan." The mediator laid out the sheets. "I suggest a bird's nest arrangement for the transition period," she said. "The children stay in the house, the on-call parent lives with them, and the other lives outside the home. Or a classic schedule, 1 week with one, the next with the other. But Jake is 8, and consistency is important. A 2-2-3 arrangement might work. Monday, Tuesday with one, Wednesday, Thursday with the other, with alternating weekends." "I'm staying with my brother," John said. "There are no conditions for the bird's nest. Let's do 2-2-3. "I agree," Sarah said, though she cringed inside at the thought of the children constantly moving. "I'm willing to adjust to the hours of the clubs." "And school," the mediator reminded me. "Who drives? Who picks up? Who monitors homework?" "I'll take Monday and Tuesday mornings," John said. "I have availability. The rest of the days are Sarah's." They discussed transportation, food, medical insurance, and payment for the sessions. The mediator carefully traced rectangles on the diagram, labeling the days and times. "Finally," she said, "all that's left is property. House, cars, savings, credit card." "Let the house stay with the children," John said. "I'll get out of the mortgage if a buyout is possible." "The buyout is possible by summer," Sarah said. "I'll need a new budget." "Compose it," the mediator nodded. "And one more thing, rules of communication. Text messages are business-related only, no judgmental language. Correspondence is kept. Discussing personal life in the presence of children is prohibited." Sarah felt herself getting a sense of relief from the clear rules. No emotion, no teasing, just an algorithm. After the mediation, she went to work at the co-working space. At the next table, two people were discussing furniture supplies. Sarah opened the foundation's shared spreadsheet and finished writing the evening's schedule. A new email from Robert popped up on the screen, confirming the venue reservation for 120 guests. The technical writer is attached. I can send a coordinator if needed. She replied briefly, "Thank you. No coordinator needed. Any questions on the matter should be sent via email." That was all. That evening, Sarah picked Jake up from chess practice. He sat on the school steps, twirling his copper participation badge. "Mom," he said, "I have a tournament on Friday, and Dad promised pizza. Can he pick me up early?" "Yes, I can," Sarah said. "I'll write to him." Emily was waiting for them at home. She was standing at the sink, washing an apple. "The mediator said we need stability," Sarah began. "We already know that," Emily interrupted. "The word mediator irritates me. It's like we're riding a bicycle." "We're suing for order," Sarah said, "and for your ability to study for the SAT without chaos." "I'm getting ready without you," Emily replied. "Just tell me when you're on duty, and that's it." Sarah wanted to object, but remained silent. Instead, she asked, "How did the training go?" "It's fine," Emily said. "The coach said I've become tougher on the court. I guess it's useful there, at least." On Saturday morning, John sent his weekly schedule. It was precise down to the minute. Sarah appreciated the orderliness, but the dryness of the letter made her stomach clench. She replied, "Okay," and attached a list of school activities. Mrs. Wilson arrived for dinner with a pie. "I'm not intruding," she said, standing in the doorway, "but I'm old and I always am. Here's the pie, and if you need me, I'll babysit Jake. Emily's her own boss." "Thank you," Sarah said. "We appreciate it." "I saw John with boxes," Mrs. Wilson said. "He looked like a man with a lot to do, but not like a man ready to give up. That's good." "He's not putting it down," Sarah replied. "He just left." "Leaving is an action," Mrs. Wilson said. "Take care of your heart and your documents." Sarah's lips parted in a smile. The pie went on the table next to the baskets for the fare. That evening, Sarah sat down with her budget: mortgage, utilities, gas, sports, groceries. She crossed out a couple of subscriptions and added a line for psychologist Emily. She put her laptop aside and took 10 slow breaths by the sink because it was easier not to fall apart that way. The preliminary hearing passed quickly. The judge asked brief questions, checked for basic rights violations, and set dates. Sarah stood on the gray carpet opposite John. They didn't look at each other. Their lawyers spoke for them. When the hearing concluded, they walked out into the hallway. Kate, who was sitting on the bench, stood up and hugged Sarah. "You held out," she said. "Let's go get some coffee." "I need to pick up Jake," Sarah replied. "Coffee, quick." They sat down in the court cafeteria. Kate watched her intently. "Did you tell him you stopped talking to that man?" she asked. "No," said Sarah. "That sounds like asking for a reward, and I have nothing to ask for." "Your logic is ironclad," Kate said. "Just don't turn everything into punishment. You don't have to suffer beyond your means to atone. Do the right thing, and that will be enough." Sarah nodded but didn't argue. A week later, John gave the address of the new apartment. A small two-room apartment in River Forest, second floor, no elevator. He dropped the kids off there on Friday. Sarah didn't go. They'd agreed not to make a big scene. That evening, messages from Jake arrived. A photo of him with pizza, a cheap desk lamp with a yellow shade, a box of new pencils. One message from Emily: "It's fine." And an hour later, "It's clean. He cleaned everything." Sarah sat in the empty living room and thought that clean in this context meant more than words. On Sunday, John returned the children on time. Emily came in, took off her sneakers, and walked into the room. "How's the apartment?" Sarah asked Jake. "It's small," he said. "But Dad said it was temporary. He has a frying pan, and we bought a green rug. I chose it." Cool, Sarah said and smiled. Next time, take a picture of the rug. Emily appeared in the kitchen later. Dad has a list on the fridge, she said. Friday pizza, Saturday pasta, Sunday soup. He types it all out, just like at work. It's his way of coping, Sarah said. And yours? Emily asked. A plan for the week and dancing, Sarah said. And work. And conversation, if you like. We'll see, Emily said and took the apple. Sarah walked around the house, noting the little things she now had to do alone. The bath mat was worn out, the porch light had burned out, and a plumber needed to fix the dripping faucet. She signed a contract with the plumber, ordered light bulbs, and took the carpet to the dry cleaner. Everything was solvable. But that evening, as she set dinner on the table, there was something about John's empty chair that couldn't be addressed with tasks. Emily's appointment with a psychologist took place through school. A young woman with straight hair asked simple questions and asked her to name 3 things that helped her pull herself together. Emily said, "Music, running, my friend Meg." When asked about her parents, she replied, "I'm not mom or dad, I'm me." Sarah listened and understood that this was a good answer for a teenager, but it hurt her that mom was now around something heavy. At work, everything went according to plan. The foundation approved the invitation design, volunteers signed up for the reception, and the caterer confirmed the snacks. Robert kept his distance, as she'd requested. He only wrote to the point. One day, he sent a short message, checked the acoustics. "We'll be okay." She replied, "Accepted." That was it. At the end of the month, the court approved the temporary agreement. Sarah received the main weekdays, John 2 evenings a week, and every other weekend. The house remained hers and the children's until the summertime to resolve the mortgage issue. They left the courthouse and bumped into each other in the hallway. They paused for a moment. "If you need anything around the house, write," John said. "The garage shelves are mine. I'll pick them up on Saturday." "Take it," Sarah said. "I'll leave the garage open." "And one more thing," he added. "I found a family counselor. Not to save them, but to prevent them from getting worse. If you want, I'll send you the contact information." "Here we go," Sarah said. "I don't mind." They went their separate ways. In the car, Sarah allowed herself to cry for the first time. Not out of self-pity, but because we had become nothing more than a schedule and rules. She wiped her face with a napkin, took a deep breath, and followed Jake. In the evening, while putting her son to bed, she heard, "Mom, can I hang up the list like Dad does?" "Of course," Sarah said. "We'll put it together." "And there will be an option to hug Mom," he added. "Let's add," she said, and felt her chest become one breath freer. Emily came later and sat on the edge of the bed in Sarah's room. "I'm still angry," she said, "but I see what you're doing to make things okay for us. That's important." "Thank you," Sarah said, "and you do a lot. I can see that." "No need for a speech," Emily said. "Just don't lie." "Okay," Sarah nodded. A new life began without fanfare. John sent photos from the weekend, the park, ice cream, the bookstore. Occasionally, a picture of the new shelf he'd hung in his kitchen. Sarah's replies were short and to the point. She saw him change. He began telling the children he loved them, not just showing them with his actions. He began asking Emily about her coaches, not just her results. He learned to tie Jake's shoelaces in a new way. She was delighted that he was growing like his father, but at the same time, it struck her as a reminder of their old life. Sarah lay on her back at night, counting down the days until the charity gala. It was something she could see through to the end, without further ado. She went to dances without fail, returning home tired but clear-headed. Sometimes in the studio hallway, she'd meet women who'd say almost the same thing she'd said a month earlier, "I'm taking back my time." They'd smile at each other like people who'd realized a simple thing. No heroic story, just discipline and honesty. The children remained with her, as agreed, but she felt a glass wall between them. Emily responded politely but distantly. Jake pressed himself closer to her at the door as they parted, as if testing her to make sure she wouldn't disappear. Sarah accepted this as a fact. Warm relationships can't be restored by order. They can only be nurtured, and that takes time. One evening, she was taking out the trash and met Mrs. Wilson on the sidewalk. "I see you're holding up well," said the neighbor. "Your shoulders are straight." "They're not always straight," Sarah admitted, "but I will try." "This is life," Mrs. Wilson said. "Not the life in books, but the real thing. Make yourself some soup and turn off your phone for an hour." Sarah returned to the house, put the pot on the stove, and put the phone away. A new calendar hung on the wall. It had colored squares labeled Mom and Dad. It wasn't a happy moment, but it was understandable, and all she could do was live by clear rules and stay the course, not hiding from anyone, including herself. The house was quiet. Emily had gone to her room, and Jake had fallen asleep earlier than usual after chess. Sarah turned off the living room light, checked the door, plugged in her phone, and lay down. She stared at the ceiling for a long moment. Her mind raced over the next day's to-do list, calling the snack vendor, meeting with Jake's teacher, confirming appointments with the volunteers. Her thoughts blurred, and sleep overtook her abruptly, without a break. She stood in a large courtroom. It wasn't a real courtroom, but everything looked organized. Benches, signs, overhead lights. The air was still. In front of her stood the judge's lectern, a tall table, and an empty chair. A single phrase glowed on the scoreboard: "The Sarah Miller case." Next to it, a digital clock read 7 o'clock, as if someone had scheduled the hearing for early morning. On the left sat John, Emily, and Jake. On the right was young Sarah, the 20-year-old with short hair and upright posture. In the back row sat Robert, his arms crossed, his gaze downcast. Mrs. Wilson sat in the front pew, with Kate next to her. They didn't whisper. Everyone was silent and waiting. Sarah tried to speak in her own defense, but her throat was dry. She glanced back, and at that moment the judge sat down at the lectern. She couldn't see his face, only his silhouette and his stern, unaccented voice. "The hearing is declared open," said the judge. "There's only one question. Why did you betray those to whom you owed your honesty?" Sarah inhaled. She began and stopped. John was the first to stand. He walked to the center. His voice was calm, like at work meetings. "I'm not asking for punishment," he said. "I want a clear answer. Not generalities. Not fatigue. Specifically why." "I lost myself," Sarah said. "I couldn't find another way to assert myself. I was looking for confirmation that I was alive, and not just part of a schedule." "You could have told me that," John replied. "Not once, but 10 times. You chose differently." The judge nodded. "The question is taken into account," he said. "Next." Emily approached the podium, her posture straight, her chin slightly higher than usual. "I won't yell," she said. "I just need to understand why you didn't stop when you knew things would get worse. You're smart. You always considered the consequences. Why did you choose the opposite here?" "I thought I could handle it," Sarah replied. "That I could hold the lines. I was wrong." "It was a choice," Emily said. "Not a mistake. A choice." These words sounded clear, like a sentence. Sarah nodded because there was nothing to argue with. Jake stood up and walked hesitantly to the center, fiddling with the sleeve of his sweatshirt. "Mom," he said, "are you going to leave us? Are you going to go somewhere you can hear?" "No," Sarah said. "I'm with you. I'm not leaving." "Then why did you make it so that Dad doesn't live with us?" he asked. "Is it because of me?" "It's not because of you," she replied. "It's never because of you. It's my action, and Dad's decision. It's not your fault." Jake nodded and returned to his seat. The judge wrote something down in his notebook. A rustling sound passed through the courtroom. Young Sarah came to the podium. She looked just as Sarah remembered herself in old photos: clear eyes, straight shoulders, confidence in simple things. "I dreamed of a family," said young Sarah. "A home where we could gather in the evenings. Of honesty. When we were on the verge of that, you turned away. You knew I didn't want that. Why?" "I felt stuck," Sarah said. That I was performing functions and then disappearing. I wanted to get my voice back. I took a shortcut. It turned out to be destructive. You don't get your voice back through trickery, young Sarah replied. You get it back through conversation, through patience, through the decision to change what can be changed. You've always been able to do that. Why did you stop? I was tired, Sarah said, and I was afraid it would keep happening. I tried to speed it up. That's not an excuse. It's a fact. The judge nodded again and turned towards Robert. Do you have anything to say? He asked. Robert stood up but didn't come closer. I didn't come here to make excuses, he said. I'm an adult. I knew what I was getting myself into. I didn't break down the door. I opened it and didn't close it. The responsibility lies with both of us. I won't talk about feelings. It won't help. Sarah listened and realized he wasn't looking for soft explanations. This was just like him. Straightforward, without any subtlety. Kate stood up from her seat. I told her to stop, she said. But I'm not a judge. I'm a friend. I'm here to tell her the truth and not abandon her, even when she does stupid things. And I'll be there for the kids if they need me. Mrs. Wilson raised her hand, just like she did in school. I'm not interfering, she said, but I am. What happened in this house is what happened. The main thing now is not to turn everything into a swamp. Children need order, adults need discipline, and fewer beautiful words, more action, that's all. The judge turned to Sarah. You've heard everyone, he said. Now tell me yourself. Without generalities, what do you do next? Sarah paused. She felt like in this dream she had the right to a direct answer. I'm cutting off all contact outside of business, she said. And that's already happening. I accept responsibility for the consequences in court and at home. I won't drag the children into explanations. I'll see a counselor to figure out why I chose the shortcut. And I will support John as the father of our children without any hidden agendas. And about yourself? The judge asked. Your plan for yourself without strangers. Dancing, work, friends, Sarah listed. And honesty, even when it's uncomfortable. It sounds simple, but it's not. I understand. The judge nodded as if checking a checkbox. The final question, he said. The prosecution is silent. Then I'll ask about it. Why did you betray not only your husband, but yourself as well? Sarah didn't turn away. She answered directly. Because I was afraid I no longer had my own life. And instead of building it with real steps, I chose confirmation through a stranger. I betrayed my own rules. It was a decision. I accept it. The room grew even quieter. The judge looked down at the paper. The court is retiring to deliberate, he said. I'll be back in a minute. No one moved. Sarah turned to John. It's a dream, she said, but I can hear you. I hear you too, he replied. In reality, words are of little use without action. I know, Sarah nodded. Emily looked up. It's important to me that you don't make an audience of us, she said. We don't need speeches. We need clear steps. Accepted, Sarah said. Jake tugged at her sleeve. When are you home this week? He asked. Monday through Thursday, she replied. We'll make your list together. And the hug mom point, he reminded me. It will be, Sarah said. The judge returned to the pulpit. The solution, he said. No formal punishment is being meted out, but you've already received it. It's a feeling of guilt and the need to move on with your life without hiding. The conditions, respect boundaries, don't use children as an argument, don't blame fatigue, work on yourself. Monitoring is daily. The report is in front of you. He slammed a wooden hammer down on the table. The sound was short and dry. The screen with the caption, Sarah Miller case, went dark. The people in the room didn't disappear immediately. They looked at her calmly. Then, one by one, they stood up and headed for the exit. John paused for a second and nodded. Emily passed by without a hug, but she didn't turn away. Jake waved. Young Sarah stopped half a step, looked straight ahead, and said, No shortcuts from here, just work. I understand, Sarah replied. She woke up with a start. It was still dark outside. The clock read 5:42. The house was silent. Sarah sat up in bed, rested her palms on the mattress, and breathed evenly for a few seconds. There was no panic inside. There was a feeling akin to a strict plan. She stood up, went to the kitchen, and poured water. She pulled out a piece of paper and wrote briefly, "Contacts business only. Consultant make an appointment. Schedule update. Talk with children no grades. John as scheduled. Dances do not miss. Phone no late night texting." She attached the paper with a magnet to the refrigerator next to the calendar. When Jake came into the kitchen at 7, he read the points out loud and nodded. "Let's add a clause saying chess on Thursdays," he said. "We'll add it," Sarah replied and wrote it down in neat handwriting. Emily came down later, opened the fridge, grabbed a yogurt, glanced at the sheet, and said nothing. But before leaving, she paused at the door. "If you stay on this list for longer than 2 weeks, I'll believe you," she said. "Fair enough," Sarah replied. Sarah turned on the coffee maker, took the lunch boxes out of the cupboard, and began packing the kids' lunches for school. The routine provided a sense of purpose. The dream hadn't dissolved. It had become a plan for which only she was responsible. That morning, Sarah opened her laptop and found an email from the school counselor, a time for a short meeting at Emily's request. She replied, "I'll be there," and closed the tab. Her list of items from the previous day lay nearby. She checked the box next to "Schedule an appointment with the counselor" and dialed the number Kate had given her. The administrator suggested Tuesday at noon. Sarah agreed. After school, she stopped by the garage to unpack the boxes left over from John's move. On the top shelf sat a plastic container with her old name written in marker, Sarah College. She lifted the lid. Inside was a thick Northwestern sweatshirt, a notebook with her class schedule, graduation photos, and an envelope containing a ticket to a concert she and the girls had attended 22 years earlier. The top photo was of her at 20. Short hair, a direct gaze, a wide grin. Sarah sat on the step by the garage entrance and stared at the photo for a long time. The phone vibrated. Kate texted, "Did you sign up?" "Yes. Tuesday, 12 o'clock. "Okay. And one more thing. Don't expect miracles from the first meeting. It's just a start." "I understand," Sarah replied. That evening, she dropped Jake off at chess, and while she waited in the hallway, she leafed through an old notebook. It was filled with simple entries. Philosophy lecture, 9:30, dancing 6 o'clock, library cafe meet Rachel. She smiled. The lists had contained many of her own personal commitments, not just others. In the notebook, she found a small bus ticket to Milwaukee. They were taking a day trip with some friends. Sarah remembered them sitting in a cheap diner, eating fries and talking about what they'd be like in 20 years. After chess, Jake asked, "Mom, why does your face look different today?" "What?" Sarah asked in surprise. "It's like you're looking at something we can't see." "I found some old photographs," she said, "from my student years." "Will you show me?" he asked. "I'll show you at home," she said. At home, they sat down on the carpet in the living room. Emily said she had a lot of homework right from the start, but when she saw the photo, she came closer. "Is that you?" she asked. "You look like Emma Watson, only without makeup." "It was me," Sarah confirmed. "Back then, I thought everything was still ahead. And in a way, I was right." "Did you write everything down point by point back then, too?" Emily asked, pointing to the notebook. "Yes," Sarah said, "but there was more to those points than I did." Emily sat down next to me. "And when did that change?" she asked. "Gradually," Sarah answered, "after you and Jake were born. Then work, home, schedules. It's not bad. I just became less of me." "I don't want my adult life to feel like a charter with clauses," Emily said. "Then you'll have to keep an eye on it yourself," Sarah said. "No one else will do it for you." On Monday evening, Kate stopped by for 15 minutes to drop off some uniforms for the fair. They stood by the door, talking quietly so the children wouldn't overhear. "How's John?" Kate asked. "Collected," Sarah said. "Precise. attentive with the children, even with me. That's not bad, Kate said. Evenness is better than passive aggression. I found my student photos, Sarah said, and I felt this, like someone from those years was looking at me and asking me some simple questions. That's your inner you, Kate said. Let her speak, but don't confuse her with the accuser. I have a consultant tomorrow, Sarah added. I'm a little scared. Be afraid, Kate said, and go. On Tuesday, Sarah arrived at the consultant's office in Evanston. A small reception area, the smell of coffee, a shelf of books, half of which she recognized by title. The consultant, Julia, was about 45, wearing a light sweater and calm eyes. They sat down opposite her. Tell me what you're talking about, Julia said. Sarah spoke without intimate details, but honestly, about fatigue, about the feeling of emptiness, about her connection with Robert, about how it destroyed the family. Julia listened, occasionally asking short questions. You say you've already cut off contact outside of work, she said, and that you feel guilty. What do you want from therapeutic work? To understand why I chose the most dangerous way to get my voice back, Sarah said, and not to repeat it, and to build a life where I belong, but without destroying someone else's. Then let's start with an inventory, Julia said. Where are you in your roles? Mother, employee, woman, partner. And what are you willing to change in each role? Sarah nodded. They made a short chart on a piece of paper. Roles, needs, actions. It sounded dry, but it provided support. And one more thing, Julia said. Your inner voice of youth is a resource. It asks direct questions. Let's give it some space. What would 20-year-old Sarah say to you today without the pathos? Sarah thought. Don't run to someone who's there and ready for you for confirmation of your existence. Look for it in your own life. And also, tell me honestly what you want, and don't pretend you don't know. Okay, Julia said. Write these phrases down and refer to them whenever you feel like taking a shortcut. After the meeting, Sarah didn't go straight home. She turned onto the northwestern campus and parked by the waterfront. On the way to the library, a student played guitar and someone jogged along the water. She stopped at the library cafe, bought a simple coffee, and sat by the window. A girl in a gray sweater sat in front of her, typing on a laptop with quick, confident movements. This wasn't a memory, but the reality of someone else's life. Sarah felt not envy, but a desire not to lose herself any further. Hey, a voice said nearby. A young woman, a cleaning lady, asked for a chair to be moved. Sarah did so. Thank you, she said. There are a lot of people today. A seminar. Sarah nodded and finished her coffee. Before leaving, she stopped at the notice board. Adult Group Contemporary Dance, Tuesday 7 p.m., open class. She took a photo of the notice, not to replace her studio, but to remember her choices weren't just one route. At home, Emily sat at the table, sorting through SAT flashcards. As a consultant, she asked without raising her head. Fair enough, Sarah replied. No drama, with a plan. Okay, Emily said. A plan is better than we'll see. How are you? Sarah asked. Math is okay, reading is a bit bad, Emily said. I'm working. Need some help? Sarah offered. No, Emily said. But if you could just not walk around asking every 10 minutes, that would help. Agreed, Sarah smiled. That evening, a brief scene occurred that she remembered. John brought Jake to Her Days, took off his son's jacket, and placed his backpack by the door. Sarah went out into the hallway. The consultant came in on Tuesday, she said. If you want the contact information, I'll send it to you. They've arrived, John nodded. I signed up too, not to return, but to hold the lines. That's right, Sarah said. And one more thing, he added. I found a running circle in the park. I'm thinking of starting one. Emily laughed, but was supportive. That's a good idea, Sarah replied. They exchanged brief updates about the schedule. It was a calm, businesslike conversation. Sarah noted that when there's less emotion in the conversation, it's easier for the children. That night she dreamed of the courtroom again, but without the judge. Just an empty room, chairs in a circle. Young Sarah sat in one of them. The same short haircut, the same slight smile. "Well," she asked, "what have you done from the list yet?" "I made an appointment with a consultant and was there," Sarah said. "I'm not texting Robert. I'm keeping to the rules with John. I didn't miss the dance." "Okay," said young Sarah. "What next?" "Stop playing the victim," Sarah replied. "Stop expecting nourishment from another man. And stop trying to buy your children's respect with promises." "Be careful with that," said young Sarah. "Children don't need perfection. They need an adult who recognizes and does, without speeches." "I'm trying," Sarah said. "Then one more thing," young Sarah added. "Stop saying you've lost yourself. You see yourself. Just choose yourself again every day, and say it out loud to yourself, not to someone else." "I'll tell you," Sarah answered. She woke up without an alarm in the morning. In the kitchen, she put on coffee and laid out the lunchboxes. Jake rushed in with a chessboard. "Mom, should we play 2 games before school?" he asked. "One," said Sarah, "and no tears when you lose." "I'm not crying," he answered seriously. They played in silence. Sarah lost fairly, without giving in. Jake beamed. "You see," he said, "I've improved." "I see," Sarah said. "That's your job, not mine." Emily came downstairs with headphones around her neck. "I can ride my bike to school," she said. "I need to clear my head before the lecture." "Go ahead," Sarah said. "I'll pick you up after practice." "No need," Emily replied. "Meg will give you a lift." "Okay," Sarah nodded. "Right when you arrive." When the house was empty, Sarah pulled her old Northwestern sweatshirt out of the closet and put it on. It wasn't a reclaim my past gesture. It was warm and comfortable. She sat down at the table, opened the spreadsheet for the fundraiser, and went through the list. Stage confirmed, volunteers assigned, purchases on the way. In the next window, business-related emails. No personal messages. Robert hadn't written in a week, and that was the right thing to do. Julia called at lunchtime. "We wanted to confirm the time of the next meeting," she said. "Same slot," Sarah replied. "Works for me." "Okay," Julia said, "and a little assignment. For a week, take one short step for yourself every day, but without any romantic connection. Write it down. We'll discuss it at the end." "Accepted," Sarah said. She took the first step right away. She walked along the lake after work, without music or her phone. She simply walked and thought about what she liked. The list was simple: hot tea, clean sheets, a quiet kitchen in the morning before anyone else was awake, dancing twice a week, and books that weren't useful, just interesting. In the evening, Emily returned in a good mood. "I improved my reading," she said. "The tutor recommended more newspaper texts." "I'll sign you up for the Atlantic on paper if you want," Sarah offered. "No need to waste money," Emily said. "The school library is enough." "Okay," Sarah nodded. Before going to bed, Sarah glanced at the photograph of her younger self again. She placed it next to her on the nightstand and said quietly, "I hear." There was no answer, and none was needed. The voice of youth had appeared not for dramatic dialogue, but to keep her within the boundaries she had set for herself. On Thursday, Emily's school held an open house for parents. Sarah came alone. Pairs of moms and dads wandered the halls, discussing admissions, clubs, and volunteer hours. The English teacher, Miss Brown, talked about reading contemporary essays. Sarah listened and made notes on her phone about what to pay attention to. At one point, she saw John across the hall. He had arrived separately. They made eye contact and nodded. No scenes. John walked over to the SAT information board, took a photo of the paper, and went into another room. Emily noticed them both, but approached only her mother. "The coach rescheduled the training for Saturday morning," she said. "Don't forget that in the schedule." "I'll write it down," Sarah nodded. "How's your English?" "Fine," Emily replied. I need to read more analysis. I can handle it. After the meeting, they went out into the schoolyard. It was cool and smelled of wet concrete. Emily lingered. Did Dad come to you? She asked. We nodded to each other, Sarah said. No further conversation. It's convenient, Emily said, when you don't have to say anything. It's not easy for me either, Sarah said, but I'm trying not to overburden you with our affairs. Don't overload it, Emily nodded, but don't pretend everything's the same. At home, Jake was laying out the pieces on the floor, preparing for Saturday's tournament. He was speaking the moves out loud, and Sarah caught herself hearing his voice grow more serious. Mom, he said, without taking his eyes off me, if I lose, will you still be proud of me? Yes, Sarah said. It's how you play that matters, not the seating chart. Dad said the same thing. Jake nodded. We were practicing together in the new apartment. Sarah felt the sting and immediately put it aside. It's normal. That's how it should be. That night, she dreamed of the school library. A quiet room, long tables, soft lighting. The clock read 2:13. Emily and Jake were sitting at the table. They looked as usual, except they were dressed identically plain gray hoodies without logos. The books lay closed. Mom, Emily said, why did you destroy our home? Sarah knew it was a dream, but it was as difficult to answer as it would have been in reality. The words wouldn't come together. She began and fell silent. Her throat tightened. Is this because of us? Jake asked. Were we noisy? Were we disturbed? No, she wanted to say, but her voice wouldn't come. You could have said, I'm not feeling well, Emily continued. Not by going to someone else, but by telling us, you taught me to speak up when I'm in pain. Why didn't you tell me yourself? Sarah tried to take a deep breath. Panic was rising inside her. Whatever she said would be defensive, not a response. Emily looked straight ahead, not angry, but stern. Jake fiddled with the drawstring of his hoodie and repeated, Is it because of us? Not because of you, Sarah finally whispered, but the sound was barely audible, like an exhalation. We can't hear you very well, Emily said. Say it clearly. Sarah opened her mouth, but the words wouldn't come. The silence was oppressive. The air conditioner hummed at the far end of the room, and the sound was a wake-up call. She sat up abruptly in bed. It was 4:09. The room was dark, only the streetlight filtering through the curtains. Her heart was beating fast. She grabbed a glass of water, took a few sips, and remained sitting on the edge of the bed. In the morning, she set the table. Jake arrived first. You weren't sleeping, he asked. I woke up early, Sarah said. I dreamed about school. Habit. I sometimes dream I'm late for the bus, Jake said. And there's no bus. Emily came downstairs with a phone in her hand. There's a tournament on Saturday, she reminded him. Can I stay home and study and then come to the finals? Of course, said Sarah. Just right when you get out. Mom, Emily said, already at the door, if you dream about conversations, don't discuss it with me as a friend. I'm a daughter. Reality is enough for me. Got it, Sarah nodded. I'm telling this to the consultant, not you. On Saturday, the tournament hall was set up at the local IMCA. Rows of folding tables, white signs with numbers, parents in plastic chairs. John brought Jake early. Sarah arrived 10 minutes later. They greeted each other businesslike. He's nervous, John said quietly. I'll take water and a banana, Sarah replied. And I'll remind you about the clock. Jake sat down at the first table. Next to him, a bespectacled boy was intently spinning a pawn. The referee explained the rules. Jake won in the first round. Sarah gave him a thumbs up. John smiled reservedly. In the second round, Jake faced a strong opponent and lost. He pressed his lips together, his eyes shining. Sarah sat down next to him. You're breathing, she said quietly. 3 breaths. Then we'll go drink some water. John came from the other side. You played well, he said. Keep your eyes on the board, not your opponent. The next round is yours. The boy nodded. He tied in the third round. By the end of the competition, he'd finished in the middle of the pack. He walked alongside his parents down the hallway toward the exit, holding his participant medal. "I'm not a champion," he said, but there were no tears in his voice. "You learned to take a punch today," John said. "That's more important for the long haul." "And you pulled yourself together after the defeat," Sarah added. "It wasn't us who did it." They walked out into the parking lot. The sun was breaking through the clouds. Emily sent a text, "I'll be home by 2." John looked at his watch. "I'll take him to my place for a couple of hours," he said. "Then I'll bring him back. What do you have planned for today?" "Shopping for the evening and script revisions," Sarah replied. "Nothing urgent." "Okay," John nodded. Sarah saw the boy's mother wearing glasses at the entrance. She approached. "Well played," she said. "Excuse me, I'm Clara. We live next door on Walcott. You're Sarah, right?" "Yes," Sarah answered. "I saw you at school," Clara said. "Hang in there. Divorce isn't a disaster if adults act like adults." Sarah thanked him, but the word divorce, spoken calmly by a stranger, rang in her head. So, talk was already circulating. She wasn't surprised. That evening, Emily was sitting at her desk editing her essay. Sarah came over with a mug of tea. "I dreamed today that you asked me why I destroyed the house," Sarah said, trying not to sound like she was confessing. "I couldn't answer in the dream. In reality, I can. I made a choice that hurt you. That's on me. And I'm doing what I can to make sure you can move on safely. I'm not asking for an answer. I'm just speaking out loud." Emily put her pen down. "Thank you," she said. "That's better than excuses." "Do you want to ask something?" Sarah asked. "No," Emily said. "I have a counselor at school. I talk to them. At home, I just want to live." "I understand," Sarah nodded. Before going to bed, Jake approached her with a piece of paper. "Can I hang a list in my room like Dad's?" he asked. "Just mine. Read chess, help set the table, hug Mom." "Hang it up," Sarah said, "and add a clause saying ask how your sister is doing." "Okay," he agreed. That night, the dream returned. This time, not the library, but an empty school cafeteria. Long tables, a sign saying milk one at a time. Emily sat at the end of the row, leafing through a textbook. Jake drew arrows in the margins. Sarah approached. The children looked up. "Do you have an answer?" Emily asked. "Yes," Sarah said. "I betrayed you because I was afraid and chose the easy way out to validate myself through another person. It was my selfishness. I admit it, and I can't bring back the past, but I can continue to be there for you and not lie." Emily gave a short nod. "Then the second question," she said. "What do you want from us?" "So you can live your life and know I'm a reliable adult," Sarah replied. "Without making promises I can't keep, I'll do things, not talk. And I ask for time." Jake raised his hand like he did in class. "I want cocoa on Thursdays," he said. "And I want you to come to my tournaments even if I lose." "Cocoa on Thursdays, tournaments according to the calendar," Sarah said. "Agreed." Emily closed her textbook. "And one more thing," she said. "If you have someone again, don't bring it into the house. Tell them honestly and upfront. I don't have to be friends with your decisions, but I have a right to know what reality I live in." "I heard you," Sarah said. "I don't have anyone now, and I never will. I have work, you, and my therapy." "Okay," Emily said. Sarah woke up without a jolt, calmly. The clock read 6:01. She went to the kitchen and got a jar of cocoa from the cupboard. On the sheet of paper on the refrigerator, next to the items about consultations and dancing, she added a line, "Thursday cocoa with Jake." Next to it, in parentheses, was Emily quiet time for studying. The morning went according to schedule. John sent a short message. "I'll pick Jake up for chess on Wednesday, okay?" "Okay," Sarah replied. Emily said at the door, "I saw your new line on the fridge. Let's see." "Yes," said Sarah. "We'll see, and then we'll do it." After school, Sarah stopped at the store. At the checkout, the cashier asked if she needed help carrying her bags. Sarah declined. In the parking lot, she met Mrs. Wilson. "I heard about the tournament," said the neighbor. "Good job, Jake. And good job you were there. Children remember presents, not speeches." "I understand," Sarah nodded. That evening, when the house was quiet, she sat in the kitchen and wrote the children short notes. "Emily, I'll be there when you need me and out of the way when it's best. You decide how to communicate. I respect that. Jake, proud of your game. Thursday Coco. Mom." She left the notes on their plates. Late in the day, a text came from John. "Thanks for today. You held the line." She replied, "Trying. For them." Nothing else followed. Her dreams with the children's voices ceased to be a threat. It became a test. Every night or day, when she wanted to avoid an unpleasant question, she would hear, "Why did you destroy our home?" And now she had a simple, concrete answer and an equally concrete plan for how not to destroy it further. On Monday, Sarah received a letter from the school coordinator offering parents a free course on co-parenting after divorce. The classes were held in the basement of the Methodist Church on Main Street on Wednesday evenings. She forwarded the letter to John. "Coming. Want to join?" A reply came a minute later. "Yes, 7 p.m." On Wednesday, Sarah arrived a little early. The basement smelled of coffee and paper cups. A chart on the wall called "Conflict-Free Communication" hung. 6 parents sat in a circle, each with a notepad. John entered, nodded to her, and sat down next to her, leaving one empty chair between them. The class was led by a woman named Nancy, about 60, calm and without a smile. "Today we'll talk about how to say no without being offended," she began, "and how to avoid discussing your personal life in front of your children." Each person was given a card with a phrase they had to rephrase. Sarah's was, "You're late again, you don't care about us." She rewrote it, "It's important to me that you arrive by 7:30. Otherwise, Jake goes to bed late." Nancy asked them to read it aloud. Sarah did. John looked at the card without interrupting. After class, Nancy detained them. "You're doing well," she said, "but you have a high level of control. I recommend agreeing on a neutral time where you discuss only the calendar and money without judgment. 15 minutes a week, over the phone or in person, always on the same day." "Let's take Friday at 9 in the morning," John suggested. "I have a window." "That's fine," Sarah agreed. They went outside. It was cool. John adjusted his hood. "I'll take you a box of books on Saturday," he said. "I found your biographies on my shelf." "Okay," Sarah said. "Leave it by the door. I'm home." They went to their cars. The conversation was dry but clear. On Friday morning, the first neutral time passed. They spoke on the phone. John stated crisply, spending on clubs, medications, and school fees shared. Sarah confirmed. They discussed the spring break schedule. The conversation lasted 12 minutes. No one raised their voices. On Saturday, Sarah drove Jake to soccer practice at the school gym. While her son ran around, she sat in the bleachers. John sat next to her. He'd brought his books and decided to stay for the last 20 minutes. They watched in silence as Jake attempted to dribble. "He's become more confident," John said. "Yes," Sarah replied, "and he became calmer about losing." "That's good," John said. After practice, they walked to the parking lot. Jake sat down next to his father. Sarah leaned toward the window. "Noted," said John. "I'll return it this evening as planned." At home, Sarah stacked her books. Among them was an old copy of Stephen King's On Writing, complete with her notes. Between the pages was a piece of paper with a plan. First job, edit texts for charity reports for money. She smiled. It was from the time when she dreamed of editing as a side job. She took a photo of the plan and filed it away in her notes. That evening, as she was getting ready for bed, she remembered the course at the church and Nancy's remark. Sleep came quickly, and again, the usual scenes were gone. Sarah found herself in an empty hall. This time, it was like a town hall, wooden benches, an American flag against the wall. John stood on the dais, not a judge, not a stern figurehead. John in a casual jacket, like he had been on Saturday outside the gym. He held that very same neutral time sheet in his hands. "Let's not go into details," he said. His voice was even. "You know I loved you. I'm not going to lecture you. I just need to say a few things, and then I'll be gone." Sarah nodded. "I forgive you," he said. "It's my decision. Not because you asked, but because this is how I live. But forgiveness doesn't change the fact that I'm leaving. I'm not returning to a marriage where I'm not safe." "I understand," Sarah said. "You built your own cage," he continued. "Not me, not the kids, not work. And you're the one who has to get out of it. Not through me, not through a new man, not through guilt. Through self-improvement and a clear plan." "I've already started," Sarah replied. "The consultant, the rules, the course. I'm not writing to Robert." "Okay," John said. "Now it's a matter of respect. Respect my home, my weekends with the kids, my new boundaries. I will respect your home and your boundaries. We are parents. That remains." "I agree," Sarah said. "And one more thing," he added. "Don't try to buy children's love with activities and gifts. They need a calm adult. Be that one." "I will," Sarah said. John nodded. "That's all," he said. "I'm not leaving out of spite or revenge. I'm leaving because it's healthier for me. I'm not an enemy. I'm the father of our children." He placed the sheet of paper on the table and left the room. The door closed silently. Sarah woke up. It was 5:58. She lay staring at the ceiling, feeling that there had been no threats or blackmail in this dream. Only direct words. On Sunday, she offered the children a simple plan. Pancakes in the morning, cleaning their rooms, then library. Emily looked skeptical. "I'll come later," she said. "I have an essay." "Okay," Sarah replied. "Come join us if there's a window." At the library, Sarah picked up a book on family budgets and a slim collection of essays. Jake was looking at comics. On the way out, they met Nancy, the course leader. "How do you like neutral time?" she asked. "It works," Sarah said. 12 minutes without judgment is an achievement." "Go on," Nancy nodded. "And don't forget about iMessages. They're boring, but they're practical." On Monday morning, Sarah drove to work at the co-working space. She ran into Robert in the communal kitchen. He placed a paper cup under the vending machine and hesitated slightly. "Hello," he said calmly. "I've seen you for a long time. Everything in the hall is ready. I sent you the seating chart." "I saw it," Sarah replied. "Thank you." He nodded, not getting personal. "I respect the boundaries," he said. "You asked for it." "I appreciate it," Sarah said. "Keep it up." They parted without further ado. Sarah's hands weren't shaking. The urge that had previously driven her to correspond was gone. It was a flat, to the point, and that's it. That afternoon, she met with the foundation's accountant at a small cafe. They discussed catering and rent receipts. At the next table, two people were arguing about marketing. Sarah realized she felt comfortable amid the noise. No dangerous conversations, just numbers and deadlines. After the meeting, she stopped at a hardware store. She bought a new shower hose and a set of screwdrivers. That evening, she replaced the hose in the bathroom herself. Her hands were a little shaky, but the result was neat. She took a photo and sent it to Kate. "Done," Kate replied with a thumbs-up emoji and the phrase, "You're doing great." On Wednesday, she and John had another course. The topic was calendar and flexibility. Nancy gave them an exercise. Imagine a sudden disruption to their plan and practice their reaction. The scenario: Jake has a fever, Emily has a rehearsal, one parent is in a meeting, the other is on the road. John took the sheet of paper. "I'm canceling the meeting," he said. "I'm taking Jake with me so Emily can be home. I'm texting you briefly. Fever. Taking him. Emily's home." You confirm without discussing who's to blame. I confirm, Sarah said. Then we'll move my chores to the morning to fill the gap. That's right, Nancy said. No accusations, no but your. The adult's role is to decide. After class, they walked out together. John stopped at the stairs. I took another storage box from the garage, he said. I'll pick up the shelves tomorrow. I'll be home, Sarah said. I'll leave the gate open. Thank you, he replied. She was about to leave, but added, I dreamed of a conversation with you. No attacks. You said you forgave, but you were leaving. John was silent for a minute. That's not far from reality, he said. I don't hold a grudge against you, but I won't go back to that format. I understand, Sarah nodded. He looked straight ahead. The main thing is not to play the role of the perpetually guilty. Children pick up on that. They need a normal adult, not someone who's always apologizing. Work hard, but don't overdo it. I'll accept, Sarah said. On Thursday, Sarah took Jake to the pediatrician for a mild cough. At the doctor's office, Dr. Lee prescribed inhalations and told him to avoid running outside for a couple of days. Sarah forwarded the recommendations to John. He replied, Got it. I'll cancel the park on Saturday. They quickly agreed on a schedule change. It was just like what Nancy had taught them. On Friday at 9 o'clock, there was neutral time. John said. Emily applied for an additional statistics course. I'll cover half the cost. Okay, Sarah replied. I'll take the textbooks. And one more thing. Jake asked for cocoa on Thursdays. I made it. If you have it on those days, don't promise. Just make water and let him know. I'll make water, John said. He could be heard typing a reminder over the phone. And one last thing. If you have someone new in your life, tell them before the kids find out. I'll do the same. Agreed, Sarah said. On Saturday evening, while the kids were at John's, Sarah met Kate at a small bar on Lamont. They sat at the counter and ordered non-alcoholic ciders. Kate looked at her intently. You've become shorter, she said. That's a plus. I'm trying to hold the line, Sarah said, and I'm taking John out of the villain role. He's not a villain. He's not a villain, Kate agreed. He's an adult who made his decision, and you made yours. Now there are the consequences. You're coping. I dreamed about him, Sarah said. He told me about the cage, and I realized I wanted to live without it. Not for him, for myself and the children. Good point, Kate nodded. Just don't turn living for the kids into a new way of not living your life. Balance. I know, Sarah said. On Sunday, the children returned. Emily was tired but calm. Daddy hung up a shelf, she said, and taught Jake how to fry eggs. Great, Sarah said. Next time he'll make us breakfast. Jake nodded proudly. I won't get burned, he said. Dad said the main thing is not to get distracted. That evening, Sarah sent Nancy a short thank you note for the course. She added to her calendar, Friday 9 am neutral time, do not miss. On the refrigerator, next to her own notes, she noted, no late correspondence completed, consultant attended, course ongoing. Before bed, she opened a chat with Robert, scrolled through the latest business messages, and closed it. No new lines. This was the right screen. Her husband's voice during this period sounded without anger. It set boundaries, reminded her of respect, and emphasized that forgiveness isn't a return, but an internal stance. Sarah found it easier to work when she kept this simple math in mind. Schedule, children, money, conversations. No quick fixes, no hidden agendas. She turned off the light and lay down. Tomorrow would be a typical Monday. School, work, phone in the drawer for an hour of silence, budget review, and one more small step for myself without strangers and without promises that no one needs. On the day of the charity event, the hall was filled with people in business attire. Volunteers were working the registration desk, microphone stands were set up near the stage, and sponsor cards were on the tables. Sarah walked up and down the aisles, checking the list of performers and their appearance times. The catering coordinator showed her the invoices, and the technician gave her a thumbs up. The sound was ready. Robert arrived at exactly 6:45. "The scene is as planned," he said in a neutral tone. "The lights are set. If necessary, I'll stay until the end." "Stay," Sarah replied, "but let's only talk about business." "Accepted," he nodded. The program began at 7. Sarah opened the evening with a short speech, thanking her partners, the purpose of the fundraiser, and providing links to the website. She spoke calmly, without embellishment. The audience listened. The applause was steady. During the break, Kate approached her and gave her a brief hug. "You're holding up," she said. "No unnecessary speeches. The preparations are underway." "I saw the numbers," Sarah nodded. "Already halfway there." By 9, it was clear they'd exceeded their target. The volunteers were smiling, and the accountant gave the signal to announce the results. Sarah stepped onto the stage, announced the figure, and the audience applauded. Robert stood by the door, looking at the scoreboard. He didn't come any closer. At 10:40, she signed the final act and removed her badge. The house was empty. John was spending the weekend with the kids. Sarah placed a folder of documents on the table and sat in the dark kitchen. The outcome was good, but there was no relief in her mind. Instead, there was exhaustion and the certain knowledge that the success of the evening didn't obscure what was happening in the family. The following week, a letter arrived from the court, the date of the final divorce hearing. 3 lines of text, the time, and the courtroom number. Sarah sent a screenshot to John. "Received." He replied, "Yes, I will." Emily asked that evening, "Is that it? Or will there be more hearings?" "This is final," Sarah said. "We'll sign the papers, and then we'll be on our way out." "Okay," Emily said. "I just want stability. No surprises." On Saturday, John invited the kids to a morning run in the park. He sent a photo, his bib number, the starting arch, Jake holding a "Go, Dad" sign, Emily in a hat and holding a thermos. Sarah looked at the screen and felt a twinge. Then she wrote, "Well done." An hour later, a video arrived. John finishing, the kids screaming. She replied, "Proud of you," and put the phone down. On Monday, Jake developed a stomach ache during recess. The school nurse called Sarah. "Better pick him up." Sarah arrived and took her son to urgent care. The doctor said it was a virus and prescribed fluids and rest. John drove straight to the clinic. "I'll take it for the night," he offered, "so you can get some sleep. I'll return it tomorrow." "Leave him with me," Sarah said. "He's more comfortable at home. I can handle it." "Okay," John nodded. "Then I'll bring some soup and electrolytes." He returned 40 minutes later with bags. Sarah accepted them and thanked him briefly. They stood in the hallway, talking quietly so as not to wake Jake. "Emily and I have an admissions meeting on Sunday," John said. "Are you coming?" "Yes," Sarah replied. "I wrote it down." That night, Jake fell asleep, breathing evenly. Sarah sat on a chair by the bed. The clock read 2:11. She wasn't thinking about the virus. She was thinking about the trial and how her "yes" would sound in response to the standard question. "Do you consent?" She wasn't looking for phrases that would soften the moment. There would be no room for lengthy explanations. There would only be yes. The day before the trial, she stopped by the church on Main Street, the same basement where the classes were held. A psychologist's office was open for parents. The room was furnished with plastic chairs, a kettle, and a stack of brochures. A schedule of short consultations was posted on the wall. Nancy was on duty. "The trial is tomorrow," Sarah said. "I have no questions, just the facts." "Facts are useful," Nancy replied. "What will you do for yourself tomorrow after the trial?" "I'm going to the office," Sarah said. "I'll close out the reports for the evening." "That's for work," Nancy corrected. "What about for yourself?" Sarah thought. "I'll walk 2 miles along the lake without a phone," she said, "and make some soup at home. Simple plan." "That'll do," Nancy nodded. And one more thing. The kids need a clear, short message after the trial. We signed the papers. We love you. Our plan isn't changing. No details. I'll put it this way, Sarah answered. On the day of the trial, they stood in the hallway outside the courtroom. John arrived on time, wearing a simple jacket and holding a folder. They nodded at each other. Inside, everything took 15 minutes. The judge asked the standard questions, and the lawyers confirmed the terms. The divorce is granted. The gavel struck once. Sarah said yes, where appropriate, and remained silent otherwise. On the way out, they stopped at the window. I'll take the kids to dinner tonight, John said. You take them tomorrow. Agreed, Sarah said. And one more thing, he added. I started going to a running group in the mornings. On Saturdays, there are long runs. If Jake wants to, I'll bring him with a thermos. It's discipline, he'll like it. That's a good idea, Sarah said. They parted ways. Sarah went outside, got into the car, and sat for a few minutes, staring at the steering wheel. There were no tears. There was a calm sense of accomplishment. She drove to the lake, walked her 2 miles, and returned home. In the evening, she gathered the children in the kitchen. We signed the papers today, she said. That means my marriage to Dad is officially over. We both love you. Our daily schedule remains the same. I already knew that, Emily said. Thank you for cutting me off. Can I have some cocoa? Jake asked. Yes, said Sarah. Today is possible. After the kitchen, she went to bed early. Sleep came quickly, without vivid images. In the morning, she woke up at 5:50 and did the usual things on her list. Coffee maker, lunchboxes, reminders, letters. The guilt hadn't gone away. It didn't cause hysterics or push her to text. It sat quietly. It made it easier for her to follow the rules and harder to rejoice even at good news. This was her punishment, to move on with her life, fulfilling her daily responsibilities and understanding that the children's trust would return slowly, and John was building his life without her. A week later, Emily brought college brochures home from school. They sat at the table and laid out the papers. John sent a message. Let's discuss the financial part on Sunday, the 3 of us. I'll prepare a spreadsheet. Sarah replied, okay. That Sunday, they met at a cafe near campus. John laid out the printed materials, costs, grants, possible loans. He spoke calmly, listened to Emily, and asked practical questions. Sarah added details about deadlines and essays. I'll apply to Madison and Illinois, Emily said. I'll see about the others when they come up. I second that, John said. I'll cover the application process. Sarah noticed Emily looking at her father with a warmth she'd previously lacked. It was both heartwarming and heartbreaking. On the surface, she maintained an even tone. After the meeting, Sarah went to the hardware store. She bought storage baskets and hooks for the garage. At home, she sorted through old boxes and threw out unnecessary items. That evening, she called Kate. How are you? She asked. On schedule, Sarah replied. No disruptions. The trial went well. John is calm. The kids are on schedule. I'm working. I go in the mornings, Sarah said. Dancing is on schedule. Sometimes I read for an hour without my phone. It's not joy, it's a routine, but it holds up. Routine is good, Kate said. Joy will come later, but you shouldn't deny yourself joy forever. It's not healthy. It's too early, Sarah said. I'm not ready. On Sunday morning, Mrs. Wilson rang the doorbell with a container of soup. In case you've forgotten, she said, food keeps you alive. Thank you, Sarah replied. I saw John running in the park, the neighbor added. He looks alive. That's good. You need to be alive too. Don't torture yourself beyond your limits. Torture isn't the plan. I don't seek out torment, Sarah said. It just is. Then don't let him drive, Mrs. Wilson said. You drive. On Monday, Sarah came to Julia's session. She told her about the trial, the course, and the children. Julia listened. You're doing it consistently, she said. Your guilt hasn't diminished, but it stopped dictating impulsive decisions. This is an important step. Next comes working on self-respect without compromise. You don't have to live in a state of punishment your whole life. But right now, your choice is to maintain discipline. It's reasonable. I don't know when it will be different, Sarah said. Don't decide now, Julia replied. Your horizon is weeks, not years. On the way home, Sarah stopped at the library. She picked up a book about habits and a thin novel she'd been putting off. At home, while the children were with John, she sat in the living room and read for an hour. Halfway through, she caught herself thinking about the plot instead of the lists. It was a small change. In the evening, Emily came into the kitchen. I saw you were reading, she said. That's good. You always said that books are air. I'm returning it, Sarah said. Okay, Emily replied. Jake came up with a sheet of paper. I made a new list, he said. Chess, math, hug mom, call dad, feed the fish. That's a great list, Sarah said. Late at night, she woke to silence. There were no dreams with halls and voices, no pictures with scenes. There was an empty room, the steady hum of the heating. She lay and thought about how punishment isn't an event. It's her daily work without external reward. And in this work, there are small supports. Cocoa on Thursdays, neutral time on Fridays, 2 miles along the lake, dancing on Wednesdays. John is building his new life, running an apartment, summer plans with the kids. Emily is studying for the SATs and choosing colleges. Jake is learning to lose without tears and win without screaming. And her life is an order that she maintains herself because it's right. In the morning, she put water on the coffee and added an item to the list on the refrigerator. Check insurance, make a dentist appointment, buy light bulbs. Simple tasks. She called the insurance company, made Jake an appointment, and stopped at the store for light bulbs. At lunch, she walked along the lake. In the evening, she went dancing and returned home without checking her phone until 10. After the kids went to bed, she sent John a quick text. Thanks for the college chart, it's helpful. He replied simply, You're welcome. She closed the phone and put it away. Her guilt didn't disappear, but it served as a reminder, not as an excuse to destroy again. This was her punishment, to live honestly, without compromise, and to know that there was no going back to the past. And yet, within this honest regime, there was room for small steps that didn't require anyone's approval. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think, click to the next one.